You're next, am I right?
Thank you. First thing I'd like to do this morning is say good morning. Good morning. Second thing I'd like to do is direct your attention to the conference addendum, page 24, Voices Against Extremism. Now, the next thing I'd like to do is just to read the mission statement of this organization of which we are part of, which Bishop Swanson was a initial convener with a bunch of other folks throughout our community. I just want to read their mission statement. Let's read our mission statement. I'm going to do that. Please listen. Voices Against Extremism works to promote clear public opposition to the use of violence within religious communities and to unite people of all identities and places against such use. Our goal is to provide religious and non-religious persons and groups the voice and resources to oppose and discourage all uses of religious violence in their own community and all communities, and to promote and encourage religious education and cooperation. That's the mission of this organization that I've just shortly been a part of. At this time, I'd like to present the Reverend Dr. Loy Ashton, a member of our conference, who is also on the drafting committee of the document that you have before you, and I'd ask him to bring about a little of the background and history of this.
Thank you, Warren. Good morning. Many of you know me. For those of you who don't, my name is Loy Ashton. I'm a permanent deacon in the Mississippi Conference. I've been here since 2003. I'm appointed to Tougaloo College. I'm a professor of religious studies, philosophy, and theology. I also direct the Center for International Studies. I have been very privileged to have had the honor to work with Hatice and Fatih here on the stage. I consider them to be my sister and brother, even though they come from a different faith tradition, because the work that they have been doing is so important to the work that we as United Methodists do on behalf of every person that we do ministry with in this planet. This particular project had its genesis last fall when a group of folks from around the state of Mississippi, an interfaith group, and I was one of 3 of the key drafters, and the drafting committee was made up of Jewish, Christian, and Muslim writers, began to work on a project, a statement that would publicly denounce any type of violence that's done in the name of religious faith, and then affirm the kinds of rights and protections that we as members of a democratic nation would want members of all faiths to be able to enjoy. This project went statewide. We worked with faith communities of all stripes, and especially ecumenically within the Christian tradition, Lutheran, Catholic, Baptist, Evangelical. We talked to a number of university presidents, Mississippi State, Southern, Millsaps, Tougaloo College, Mississippi Valley. And we have widespread support for this document. It was unveiled for the first time on March 29th at the annual Interfaith Banquet that was actually held here at the Convention Center. We've had, and we're very grateful to Bishop Swanson for his strong support for this project. I'd like to point out that to our knowledge, this is the first time that we know of that any interfaith project in any of the 50 states that has tried to incorporate all of the communities within their state, both religious and non-religious, to make a public statement against violence done in the name of religious faith has ever been created. And to that effect, the United Methodist Church and this 2016 session of the annual conference is the first time that this statement has now had an opportunity to go before an entire church body for review. So we're very proud to be able to present that to you. It is there in the conference addendum. And at this point, I would like to be able to introduce 2 of the other drafters and conveners in this project, Mr. Fatih Özcan and Ms. Hatice Gunel.
Good morning. My name is Fatih Özcan. I am the Regional Director for the Dialogue Institute, and I am humbled and honored to be welcomed in this important occasion. And I just wrote my statements I will be reading, and I apologize for my accent, but you know, it has been 15 years, I couldn't fix it, so it is your duty to understand. So, religion is an expression of love to all humanity. Despite the fact that all human beings are entitled to dignity, regardless of who they are and the beliefs they hold, religious extremism takes place more often nowadays. An extremist action carried by a group causes other types of extremism in our society. In all cases, innocent people and their families suffer. Because of that, Voices Against Extremism aims to address religious extremism issue. According to a research conducted by Institute for Economics and Peace, the total number of deaths as a result of the attack of terrorist groups in 2015 reached 32,685, the highest level ever recorded, constituting an 80% increase since 2014. However, the majority of terrorist attacks in the West are not carried out by well-organized international groups. Instead, the terrorist threat in the West largely comes from lone wolf terrorism. Lone wolf terrorists are individuals or small number of individuals who commit an attack in support of a group, movement, or ideology without material assistance or other forms of support. Their motivations are racial, religious supremacy, individual issues, religious fundamentalism, and political extremism. In that regard, 70% of all terrorist attacks in the West caused by lone wolf attacks, which means these people are inspired by an ideology and committed terrorism on their own. Only 30% are directly organized by terrorist groups. This data show that hatred has started to become the driving force in our society rather than love. In synagogues, churches, mosques, while we teach love, tolerance, and understanding as the essence of our religions, hatred started to become a way of expression of faith. Unfortunately, hatred has become driving force in some of believers' lives. Mr. Fethullah Gülen, a well-respected Turkish Muslim scholar, has encouraged Muslims to combat against extremism through education and dialogue activities for many years. He suggests that we must do our best to educate our people on this matter. It appears that some headways is being achieved through dialogue and education efforts. He says we must teach that achieving any goal by killing people is not the way of prophets or the prophets or friends of God. Voices Against Extremism help us become one voice against all forms of violence, extremism, and restore love, tolerance, and understanding back in our society. In this one-page declaration, when you consider wide range of diversity in drafting committee, you will hear voice of Democrats and Republicans, liberals and conservatives, Christians, Jews and Muslims, Catholics, Episcopals and United Methodists, civic organizations, public and private university presidents and faculty members, Democrat and Republican politicians, and etc. Most importantly, you will hear voice coming from Mount Sinai saying, "You shall not murder." Would you join that voice? Voices Against Extremism is a prayer offered to our enemies as we follow the voice coming from Mount Olive saying, "Love your enemies, bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you, and pray for them which despitefully use you and persecute you." Would you join that voice? and yet you will hear the voice of Muhammad coming from Mount Paran, affirming that killing one person unjustly is equal to killing all humanity, and saving one's life is equal saving all of humanity. Would you join that voice? Before closing my remarks, I would like to thank Mr. Fethullah Gülen for his firm stand and statements helping us to take this action against extremism. Most importantly, I would like to thank the Right Reverend Bishop Swanson and Mississippi Conference of United Methodist Church for welcoming the voices against extremism coming from Mount Sinai, Mount Olive, and Mount Paran. Thank you so much.
I'm not exactly sure what we're supposed to do next, Bishop, but here he comes, so I guess we'll just wait a second. He'll tell us.
We are not asking you to vote on this. What we are asking you to do is to take this back to your churches as you are moved by the Spirit, so that you might, because one of the reasons I'm not asking you to vote on it is because we United Methodists have a propensity to want to always amend everything. Amen, y'all. This is a document that comes through great struggle that we have worked on with many ecumenical partners and interfaith partners to put together. And if you attempt to amend this, then it will not be what we put together. And we will be out of step and out of harmony with what we have tried to do. So what I'd ask for us to do is to take this back to your communities and your churches, to have some dialogue and some conversations in your churches, especially that you might also share with your communities of faith in your churches the fact that there are within the religious community those voices that rise up against extremism and rise up against violence. So many times in the Christian community, I've received all kind of letters asking me, what does the church have to say about this? Now you have a document that you can use that will be a blessing to you and your community, that not only comes with the hand and the hearts and the minds of Methodists, but other denominations, the Jewish community here in Mississippi, and the Muslim community, as we have worked and labored hard to represent what all of our faiths teach us. And I hope you will take this back and share it with your community. But I don't want us to bother with trying to perfect it the way we normally do as United Methodists. So we are presenting it to you as a gift from our community that we have worked on as religious voices against extremism. Now, if you want to applaud it or however, I'm fine. But I don't want us to debate it. Amen. And if you want to show your appreciation to these leaders who helped us in Mississippi to be the first state in the union to have a voice against extremism, I think you ought to stand and give God a hand clap of praise for this. Amen. Thank you so much. One last word on this. The night that we all signed this, and I want you to hear this, there was a commitment made, particularly from the former governor of Mississippi, William Winters, and others, to introduce this in every state in the United States. I don't know about you, but I'm extremely proud to be from Mississippi, that we would lead the way in talking about this from an interfaith position, that we as persons of faith stand against this violence without doing harm to each other. God bless you.